Hello Booktube, it's Mike from Riffraff's Reading Renaissance, and this week we're in Framed in September, Part 2. Framed in September is a Booktube event that celebrates all aspects of appreciating art, even if one can imagine it beyond books. The hosts are Elizabeth from Bookwin's Books, Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads, Hannah from Hannah's Books, and Heather from Heather Greg. And I'm delighted to take part. You will have already seen part 1, hopefully, and tonight's part 2. The prompts are 1, read a book, either fiction or non-fiction, focusing on art. So that's a nice wide range of options. Number 2 is to experience a work of art in whatever way you feel fit. And number 3 is a bonus prompt to actually create art or tell us about a work of art that is important to you. So, last time in part 1, we visited a local art gallery. We bought some books, of course. We explored some illustrations in classic children's books, and we enjoyed some very local sculpture. Today in part 2, we're going to attend a classical music concert at our local playhouse. We're going to buy some books, well, in fact, just one. We're going to review a famous Dutch artist, read a book about him, watch a film about him, and in fact 2 documentaries on his life and paintings. So if you enjoyed part 1, do come along with me now in part 2 of Framed in September. One of the aspects of my day job is that I need to attend certain corporate events, and it's no secret that some are more fun or less fun than others. One of the ones I particularly enjoy is when I'm asked to attend a local concert given by the KZN Philharmonic Orchestra, which is housed in the KZN Playhouse. The Playhouse is a large theatrical complex that was built in 1986, combining the historic buildings of the 1926 Prince's Theatre and the 1935 Tudor Playhouse, which were both cinemas at the time. It was turned into a vast theatrical complex that consists of a large theatre room called the Opera, which seats 1,200 people, a smaller one called the Drama, which seats 460 people. There's one called the Loft for 150 people, one called the Studio for 196 people, and one called the Cellar for 120 people. So a whole lot of different sized theatrical spaces. And of course, the building also has studios, offices, costume departments, and technical workshops. And it is in fact a beautiful combination of a historic landmark and now also a living art space. The KZN Philharmonic is so called because the province I live in is called KwaZulu-Natal, and KZN is the shortening of that. And the Philharmonic Orchestra is led by a dynamic personality called Bongani Tembe. Bongani is a force of nature and keeps the orchestra rising to more and more heights, and it's an absolute joy. You can hear when he speaks about music and his love for the orchestra, you can hear his passion coming through.
And it's got more than 23 nationalities from around the world. Delighted that to say we've produced more than 50 young people who have now gainful employment in orchestras around South Africa and some in Europe. We've done operas about Mandela, Winnie Mandela, Shaka Zulu, the king of the Zulus. So really opera can be for everyone, and it is meant to be that way. When it started in Italy, people used to come and just watch it and eat and throw tomatoes at their singers. So it was really something for the community. But we've just made it as if it is something for the few. So it's something that must be shared with everyone.
The building itself is an impressive entrance when you first see it. One walks into the sweep of the stairs and the vast foyer. It's a beautiful space combining the historic elements of the external architecture with very beautiful internal but modern and local African design of the interior of the building. And if you walk through the foyer, you will eventually find the bookseller. I think I mentioned in an earlier video the program called Street Lit, which is a wonderful program that runs in Durban, where homeless people are equipped with books to go out and sell in order to generate sufficient funds to help them out, even if it's the short term. And for obvious reasons, wherever there's a cultural event in Durban, you'll find the Street Lit bookseller. And of course, we needed to buy a book. It's a very good cause, but only one this time. I bought The Shipping News because I don't have a copy of it. I've seen the film, but I haven't read the book, and I thought it would be a good reason to have the book as a read. So I bought that ahead of the concert itself. The concert itself is the opening of what's called our early spring season. Of course, remember, we're at a different stage of the seasons than those of you up in the north. And it's described, as you see on the cover, as the World Symphony Series. And the program for the night, when you open the program, there in all his glory is Bongani with a welcoming message. And then it tells you the program for the evening, which in our case was the Magic Flute Overture from Mozart, just the overture, and then a piece by Saint-Saëns, not in fact the Carnival of the Animals, which is always what everybody thinks of when they hear Saint-Saëns' name, but this was in fact the Piano Concerto No. 5, Opus 103 in F major, known as the Egyptian. And this was followed after the intermission by a work by Borodin, the Symphony No. 1 in E-flat major. The Magic Flute is, of course, one of Mozart's greatest masterpieces, operatic or otherwise. Paris-born Saint-Saëns travelled on 4 continents, but never visited North America. His favourite destinations were Algeria and Egypt, and he died at the age of 86 while visiting Egypt. The only authentic African element of the concerto shows up strongly in the second movement. Its theme is based on an original Nubian love song, which Saint-Saëns overheard sung by boatmen during a dahabeah boat journey on the Nile. Alexander Borodin was one of Russia's foremost musical amateurs. That seems a strange description, but in fact he was an amateur composer. Although the slow introduction is somewhat ominous, it gives way to a joyous outdoorsy main theme characterized by brass fanfares, syncopation, and the prominent use of the kettle drums. That sounds like fun. Our conductor is Brandon Phillips from Cape Town, and our soloist is Kiego Mukawa, who won the 3rd prize at the Queen Elizabeth competition in 2021 and the 2nd prize at the Long Thibaut Crespin competition in 2019. He has attracted much attention by winning top prizes in these prestigious international competitions and is currently performing in a wide range of solo and chamber music activities in Japan and Europe. I've tried in the video to give you a feel of both the Playhouse and the concert itself. Of course, as is always the case, recording the concert is not allowed. One can sometimes get away with a teeny snippet. really shouldn't take advantage of that, because there's very valid reasons why there needs to be control over the recordings of such music. Talking of recording of music, though, the new fans of our Japanese soloist were well catered to, as after the performance he made himself very available in the foyer, signing and selling CDs, and I took advantage to get a CD. This is the CD of Keigo Mukawa. In this case, he's recording music by Ravel. Obviously, this was pre-done. But what was quite sweet was, because we picked it up on the day of the concert, he signed the CD for us. So, although I'm sure he's a young man on the way up, who knows, one day when he's as famous as Pavarotti, I'll be able to say, well, I've got a signed CD by the young man when he came to Durban in 2025. The music itself was entirely uplifting. I was not familiar with Saint-Saëns' Egyptian suite, but it was really, really beautiful and displayed a stunning display of piano dexterity. And by good fortune, I see that YouTube actually has a recorded performance by Keigo Mukawa of exactly this Egyptian suite on some other occasion. In fact, if I look at the program said he won a prize. Let me get this right. Now, of course, it's disappeared. Where has he gone? Yes, he won a prize at the Queen Elizabeth competition in 2021. And if I have my memory correct, that's the recording that's available on YouTube. So I'll leave a link down below, as they always say. And I really urge you to give it a listen, because this young man is really something special. And the music was spectacular. As is always the case, live concerts of any music are uplifting, but there's something special about classical music that just lifts you out of yourself and your daily humdrum. And we all left the theatre eventually, I think, with our spirits soaring, all the better for having been exposed to a lovely side of art. The second prompt that we addressed this week was to read a book related to art. And here we can thank the forces of the gods, or whoever determines what books you find in your travels to local bookshops. I tend to try and frequent the charity shops. We have both a bookshop attached to a local hospice, and we have a bookshop, several bookshops attached to the various branches of our SPCA, the animal shelter place. And in fact, it was at one of these that I was browsing the books, which are priced at a ridiculously low level. Obviously, it's for charity, and therefore the price of the book is never an impediment. And my eye fell on this book, which is obviously The Girl with a Pearl Earring, a novel by Tracy Chevalier. Now, I knew of the painting. I did not really know of the novel, although I had a vague sense that there'd been a film. But I thought, why not? Prompted by the Framed in September injunction to read a book about art, and I hadn't yet worked out. In part one, I showed you some of the books, the reference books on art that I have and love, but I hadn't thought about a new book to go and read about art, and therefore this was it fell straight into my lap, and I thought, well, why not? And it was all of 243 pages, so I almost thought it would qualify as Shorty September as well. But irrespective, I decided I'd give this a read. The book is historical fiction, and it winds a narrative around the possible story behind the painting. Johannes Vermeer was a Dutch painter who lived from 1632 to 1675, and this is perhaps a unique painting among his paintings. Of course, I went and referenced my beautiful Great Artists series, and you will see in the video clip here that I had a look at all the various paintings that Vermeer had. And what struck me immediately as entirely unique is that The Girl with the Pearl Earring is a head and shoulders portrait, whereas all the rest of the paintings that you see here from Vermeer are studies of people in rooms with things around them. So there was something immediately different about this painting. And this book, I think, takes that into account and sort of builds a narrative. The painting itself is really extraordinary. It's probably up there with the Mona Lisa in terms of international fame. And in fact, it's sometimes known, I believe, as the Mona Lisa of the North. Sort of a one-upmanship between the two works of art. But one thing I have seen in my research on the painting is that a study has been done by neurologists to try and understand the really unique appeal of this painting to those who view it. And they have come up with a theory that there is what they call a sustained attention loop, that our eyes as the viewer are immediately drawn to her eyes, and then they drop to her mouth, which is seductively open, which was very unusual for portraits at the time. Then, of course, the eye moves immediately to the pearl earring with its reflections of light from the window, and almost immediately from there it is drawn back again to the eyes into a triangular, what they call sustained attentional loop. And therefore, this picture, like some others you've heard mentioned in the art world, really looks as if she is watching you, and she holds your gaze and entraps you. The book, obviously inspired by the painting, imagines how the painting came to be. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautifully written. It's written in the first person, that of Griet, a 16-year-old who, because of situations of poverty in the Netherlands and specifically in Delft, which is where Vermeer lived at the time, she is forced to become a maid in Vermeer's house. And her household is Protestant, Vermeer's was Catholic, and therefore this was quite a traumatic experience for young Griet to move into a different house, a different religious environment, at a time when those things were significant suspicion between them. Because, of course, the schisms from the original Catholic Church were much more recent than they are now. The prose is absolutely beautiful. It's subtle, it's gentle, but it clearly delineates characters, and boy, these characters are fascinating. There is the enigmatic artist himself, Vermeer. He has an unhappy and complex wife, and there is also a formidable but pragmatic mother-in-law. They are three of the sort of most important characters. There's a few other characters. There's the family butcher and the family butcher's son who takes a fancy to Griet. There's just a wonderful sense of place and time. I'm fortunate enough to have lived in the Netherlands for 5 years when I was working there, and therefore I know Delft, and the novel placed me not only right back in the place, but even historically back in the time. Of course, some of these beautiful parts of cities like Delft have survived, and therefore it's quite easy to see what it might have looked like back in the 1600s. And in fact, Vermeer did paint this beautiful picture of Delft at the time. The writing is almost magical. It's quite difficult to describe, because it's a subtle, gentle drawing into the world of this young girl, and how she quite pragmatically but naively, and as she discovers more and more, adjusts to the situation she is in, not all of which is of her own making. But it's a riveting read. It really is. I cannot recommend it strongly enough to anybody who hasn't read it, or anyone who has any interest in the painting or the art. The character development is strong. The Vermeer has, I think, a slightly typical artist's selfish obsession, where the art is what matters, and all else, irrespective of the impact of other people, is secondary to an obsessive need to create that perfect piece of art that is envisaged. And that side of his nature is brilliantly captured in the book, and of course the impact that has on the characters around him. It's an utterly charming tale. I cannot recommend it enough. Of course, from this book, because it was such a great story, in 2003 there was a film starring Scarlett Johansson as Griet and Colin Firth as Vermeer. I've rewatched the film, and it's a charming evocation of the novel. Of course, the actual cinematography is fantastic because the talented crew behind the film have captured Vermeer's feel for light, which was, of course, the thing that his paintings were known for, was the unbelievable radiance of the light in his pictures. Somebody once said it's a bit like looking at Kodachrome slides. It's got that radiance where the colors burst off the surface, and the film did a really good job of capturing that side of Vermeer's paintings. In addition, I found two other documentaries which I watched and thoroughly enjoyed. One from 2023 called Close to Vermeer, which is about the setting up of the most comprehensive exhibition of Vermeer's work ever done. Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring normally lives in the Mauritshuis Museum in The Hague, or Den Haag, as they call it. But this comprehensive exhibition was prepared at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, which I visited, and it is just one of the great art museums of the world, frankly. The exhibition was the most successful ever held at the Rijksmuseum, and over 650,000 visitors attended that exhibition. The documentary called Close to Vermeer tells the story and has the honor of 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes film database. So seek it out if you have any interest at all in Vermeer. And another twist, a second film, I don't know if you'd call it a documentary, but a 2013 film called Tim's Vermeer talks about the very unlikely story of a guy whose name is Tim and his quest to recreate a Vermeer. Tim, I think, is an IT technology type of guy, but he got caught by the thing I was just alluding to now, the absolutely unreally uncanny ability of Vermeer's pictures to radiate, a sort of what he called photorealism depiction of light on surfaces. This absolutely obsessed Tim, and he explores the theory behind it. He delves into what's called the camera obscura, which was an early prototype for a camera. There's a lack of evidence as to whether Vermeer actually made use of camera obscuras, but there's certainly some suggestion that he might have, and both the book and therefore the film make the assumption that he does, and it's quite interesting part of the story. What is known is that Vermeer's friend and executor, van Leeuwenhoek, was in fact a pioneer of lens making and was involved in the developments of the camera obscura. So that's a lot of art all in one package. we had the painting, we had the book of the painting, then we had the film of the book, and two documentaries about the folklore around the painting. And what a painting. I have to say, I've had tremendous fun simply absorbing all the aspects of The Girl with a Pearl Earring. So that's part 2 of Framed in September. And I would like to thank very much the 4 hosts who prompted the idea of going a little bit beyond mere books into the world of art. It's been an enormously fun journey, and I hope you've enjoyed my recapping of it here. If so, please do all the necessaries that I'm supposed to and always forget to ask. The like, subscribe, etc. Somebody explained to me that the likes are about what you get back, and obviously the subscribe works to my favor with the almighty algorithm. But let's not dwell on such silly details. Let's enjoy the art, and I look forward to seeing what we do in part 3. See you next time, Booktube. Thanks. Bye-bye.